Admiral Trent Ellis stared at the flickering holographic display in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station. His face, normally calm and controlled, showed clear worry. The display showed red dots spreading across the map of human space. Each red dot was a human colony or outpost that had gone silent. "How many have we lost contact with now?" he asked, his voice low. 17 colonies in the last 6 hours, sir," said Lieutenant Gregory Bell. The young officer's hands trembled slightly as he updated the display. "We still have no direct visual confirmation of the enemy, just the emergency beacons and then nothing." Ellis rubbed his tired eyes. At 53, he had spent 30 years in the Sol Defense Force. He had seen pirate raids, colonial uprisings, and even the brief but bloody mining conflict in the asteroid belt. But nothing like this. Nothing that made his stomach knot with such dread. The command center doors slid open. General Alan Murphy strode in, followed by a team of intelligence officers. Murphy's face was grim. "We have confirmation, Admiral. It's the Vraxians." The room fell silent. The Vraxian hegemony was not unknown to humanity. Distant observations had been made of their civilization in the Andromeda galaxy, but all attempts at contact had been met with silence. Until now. "How bad?" Ellis asked. Murphy gestured to one of his officers, who connected a data drive to the main display. The hologram shifted, showing grainy footage from a mining outpost on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. The footage showed sleek, angular ships descending from the sky. They moved unlike any spacecraft humans had built, flowing through the air as if gravity was merely a suggestion. Beams of purple energy sliced through buildings and defense turrets. This was received 4 hours ago. The colony had a population of 3,000. We believe there were no survivors. Ellis watched as the footage ended with a bright flash. "Their weapons? Unlike anything we've seen," Murphy said. "Energy-based, but not lasers or plasma. Our scientists think they somehow manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. One shot can disintegrate anything in its path. And our weapons against them?" Murphy's silence was answer enough. A communications officer suddenly called out from her station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Europa Outpost." "Put it through," Ellis ordered. The main display changed to show the face of Lieutenant Kimberly White. Her spacesuit was damaged, and blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. Behind her, warning lights flashed and people ran in panic. "This is Lieutenant White at Europa Station. They're everywhere. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls." An explosion rocked her position, and the camera shook violently. "They're saying something about a purification crusade, about cleansing primitive species." Another explosion. "God help us all." The transmission cut to static. Ellis turned to Murphy. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current pace? 3 weeks, maybe less." Ellis nodded slowly. "Alert the President. Tell her we need a full meeting of the Sol Defense Council. Now." President Samantha Powell sat at the head of the long table in the underground war room. Her normally perfectly styled gray hair was disheveled, her suit wrinkled from the rushed evacuation from the White House to the military bunker. Around the table sat the highest-ranking military officers, scientists, and government officials. "Give me options," she said. General Murphy stood. "Madam President, conventional military response is problematic. The Vraxians have already destroyed or captured 26 colonies. Their technology is vastly superior to ours. There must be something we can do," said the Secretary of Defense, his voice tight with frustration. "We've ordered all available ships to defensive positions around the inner planets," Ellis explained. "But based on what we've seen, it would be like trying to stop a tidal wave with a picket fence." "What about evacuations?" asked Powell. "We're moving as many colonists as possible back toward Earth," Murphy said. "But we have millions of people spread across dozens of worlds. We simply don't have enough ships or time." The room fell into grim silence. "There is one option," said a quiet voice from the end of the table. All heads turned toward Dr. Raymond Davis, the elderly head of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Division. "Operation Thunderchild," he said simply. President Powell's eyes widened. That program exists? I thought it was theoretical. Not theoretical, Madam President, just very, very secret. Davis tapped on his tablet, and the room's display showed images of massive ships unlike any in Earth's known fleet. 7 vessels, each nearly 2 miles long. We've been building them for 15 years, hidden in shipyards throughout the solar system. How is this possible? Demanded the Secretary of Defense. I've never approved funding for anything like this. Black budget, Davis said. After we recovered the alien vessel from Mars in 2098, we realized we weren't alone in the galaxy, and we might not be welcome. The Dreadnought program was created with the authorization of your predecessor's predecessor, Madam President. Ellis leaned forward. What capabilities are we talking about? The Dreadnoughts use technology reverse-engineered from the Mars vessel, artificial gravity manipulation, energy shields that can withstand nuclear detonations, weapon systems that, well, let's just say they can crack a small moon in half if necessary. Are they ready? Powell asked. Davis hesitated. 5 are fully operational, 2 are at 85% completion. And the crews? That's the problem. We have skeleton crews trained, but to properly man all 7 vessels, we need at least 20,000 personnel. Powell stood and walked to the window that looked out over the emergency command center below. Hundreds of military personnel worked at fever pitch, coordinating what might be humanity's last defense. How long to deploy the Dreadnoughts to the front lines? She asked without turning. Even with emergency protocols, at least 3 weeks. To gather the crews and bring the ships to full combat readiness, Davis said. The Vraxians will be at our doorstep by then, Murphy pointed out. Powell turned back to the table. Her face was set with determination. Then we need to slow them down. Admiral Ellis, assemble every combat-capable ship we have. Their mission will be to delay the Vraxian advance by any means necessary. That would be a suicide mission, Madam President, Ellis said quietly. I know. Powell's voice was heavy. But they will give their lives so that billions may live. General Murphy, I want all Earth defenses at maximum readiness. Dr. Davis, you have full authority to expedite the Dreadnought program. Cut any corners you need to cut. She looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each person. Make no mistake. We are fighting for the survival of our species. Humanity stands on the edge of extinction. But we will not go quietly. If these Vraxians want Earth, they're going to pay for it in blood. Ellis stood and saluted. Yes, Madam President. As the meeting ended, Ellis pulled Murphy aside. I want to lead the delaying action personally. Murphy shook his head. We need you here to coordinate Earth's defense. Then find me someone good, Ellis said. Someone who can make the Vraxians bleed for every inch of space they take, Murphy nodded slowly. I have just the person. Captain Frank Winters and the SDF Relentless. He's unorthodox, but there's no better tactical mind in the fleet. Good, Ellis said, because right now we need a miracle. From the observation deck of the lunar base, Ellis watched as ships began to gather, humanity's last line of defense. In the distance, barely visible, construction lights flickered around the hidden shipyard where one of the massive dreadnoughts waited. Hold the line, he whispered to the departing ships. Just hold the line. Captain Frank Winters stood on the bridge of the SDF Relentless, looking at the tactical display. 16 human ships formed a defensive line around the Proxima Centauri colony. It wasn't much against the approaching Vraxian fleet, but it was all Earth could spare. Status report, Winters said. He was 42 with a scar running down his left cheek from a pirate boarding action years ago. His crew respected him because he never asked them to take risks he wouldn't take himself. All ships in position, Captain, said his first officer, Commander Rick Davis. Civilian evacuation is at 68%. They need at least 12 more hours to get everyone off the colony. Winters nodded. Their orders were clear. Delay the Vraxian advance by any means necessary. Buy time for the civilians to escape and for Earth's secret dreadnoughts to prepare. Incoming transmission from Colony Control, called out Communications Officer Lisa Grant. Her dark hands moved quickly over the console. Put it through, Winters ordered. The screen showed the tired face of Colony Administrator Susan Miller. "Captain, we're moving as fast as we can, but we have over 10,000 people still waiting for transport." "Keep going, Administrator. We'll give you the time you need." Winters tried to sound more confident than he felt. "Thank you, Captain. These people—" Her words were cut off as alarms began to sound on the Relentless. "Multiple contacts," shouted Lieutenant Peter Gibson from the sensor station. "Vraxian ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. I count 37 vessels. Their main fleet just arrived." Winters took a deep breath. "All hands to battle stations. Lieutenant Grant, open a channel to all our ships." When the channel was open, Winters spoke clearly. "This is Captain Winters. We all know why we're here. The people of Earth are counting on us to buy them time. Every minute we hold this line means more civilians get to safety. Every Vraxian ship we damage or destroy is one less threat to our homes. Fight smart, fight hard, make them remember us." He nodded to Grant to close the channel, then turned to his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Commander Martinez, what do we know about their capabilities from the previous encounters?" Martinez, a stocky man with 20 years of military experience, pointed to the display. "Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than ours. Energy shields can withstand conventional weapons fire for extended periods, but there's a pattern to their attack formation. They seem to protect their larger ships at all costs, meaning their big ships might be vulnerable if we can isolate them," Winters said thoughtfully. "What about the asteroid belt in this system?" "Dense enough to cause navigation problems, sir," said Navigator Emma Collins. "Most commercial ships avoid it completely." A plan began to form in Winters' mind. "Plot a retreat course through the asteroid belt. Make it look like we're breaking formation in panic." Davis looked concerned. "Sir, that's dangerous even for us." "Exactly." Winters smiled grimly. "But we've trained for this. They haven't." As the Vraxian fleet approached, they intercepted a transmission. The image of a tall, gray-skinned alien appeared on screen. Its face had no nose, just breathing slits, and its yellow eyes were set wide apart. "I am Supreme Executor Jacques Svour of the Vraxian hegemony," it spoke in perfect English. "Your species has been judged as primitive and unworthy. Surrender now and we will allow some to live as servants. Resist and face complete extermination." Winters cut the transmission. "Well, that makes our job simpler. No moral gray areas here." He turned to his crew. "Execute Retreat Plan Alpha. All ships to fall back to the asteroid belt in seemingly random patterns. Make it look like we're panicking." The human fleet broke formation, ships turning in different directions as if in disarray. The Vraxian fleet, seeing what appeared to be a rout, surged forward in pursuit. "They're taking the bait," Davis said. "The smaller attack ships are moving ahead of their main fleet." "Perfect," Winters replied. "Spring the trap." The human ships, now scattered among the asteroids, suddenly cut their engines and rotated. Hidden from Vraxian sensors by the mineral-rich rocks, they powered up weapon systems. "Fire on my mark," Winters ordered as Vraxian ships entered the belt, chasing what they thought were easy targets. 3, 2, 1, mark! 16 human ships fired simultaneously from multiple directions. The surprise attack caught the Vraxian vanguard unprepared. Their shields, while powerful, weren't fully activated. 3 enemy ships exploded immediately. 2 more spun out of control, crashing into asteroids. "Keep moving," Winters commanded. "Don't stay in one place long enough for them to target you." The battle became a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the asteroids. Human ships would appear, fire, then vanish behind the massive rocks. The Vraxians, unfamiliar with the terrain, struggled to coordinate their response. On the colony, Administrator Miller watched the battle from the control center. "The last transport ships are loading now," she reported to the Relentless. 30 minutes until they can launch." "Understood," Winters replied. But the situation was deteriorating. The Vraxians were adapting to their tactics. 2 human destroyers had already been lost, their debris joining the asteroids in orbit. "Captain," Chief Engineer Olivia Johnson called from engineering, "I have an idea. Proxima Centauri is experiencing solar flare activity in Sector 7. If we can lure the Vraxian ships there, their sensors might be overloaded. Winters finished her thought. Do it. The Relentless changed course, heading directly for the area of solar activity. Several Vraxian ships followed, including a large command vessel. They're right behind us, Davis warned. Shields down to 40%. Just a little closer, Winters said, gripping his chair as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. The Relentless burst into the region of intense solar radiation. Immediately, warning lights flashed on the bridge. "Shields failing," shouted the engineering officer. "Solar radiation is interfering with our systems." "Cut all power except life support and thrusters," Winters ordered. "Make us look dead in the water." The Relentless went dark, drifting in space. The pursuing Vraxian ship slowed, approaching cautiously. "Now!" Winters shouted. "All power to weapons! Target their command ship!" The Relentless came alive, its weapons charging instantly. Before the Vraxian ships could raise their shields, the human vessel fired everything it had at the enemy command ship. The concentrated barrage penetrated the unprepared defenses, causing massive damage to the alien vessel. "Direct hit," Martinez called out. "They're venting atmosphere." But the victory was short-lived. The other Vraxian ships recovered quickly, surrounding the Relentless and opening fire from all directions. "Shields critical," Johnson reported from engineering. "We can't take much more of this." Winters looked at his tactical display. The colony's last transports were launching, filled with civilians. They had done their job. Now they just needed to survive long enough to report what they had learned about the enemy. "All power to engines," he ordered. "Get us out of here." The Relentless shot forward, trailing debris and venting air from multiple hull breaches. But the Vraxian ships were relentless in pursuit. "Captain?" Grant said urgently. "I've been analyzing their communications during the battle. There's a pattern to their shield modulation. They're vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies." Winters nodded. "Record everything. Make sure this data gets back to Earth." As if in answer to his words, a massive explosion rocked the ship. The bridge lights flickered. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 5, Davis reported grimly. "Life support failing. Engines at 20%. Winters looked at his crew. They all knew what came next. "Lieutenant Grant, send everything we've learned about the Vraxians to Earth. Encrypt it with my personal code." He stood up straight, pride in his eyes as he looked at his crew. "It's been an honor serving with all of you." On the main viewer, they could see Vraxian boarding ships approaching. Winters touched a control on his chair. "This is Captain Frank Winters of the SDF Relentless. To any human ships receiving this transmission, the Vraxians have weaknesses. Their ships have sensor blind spots directly behind their engine arrays. Their shields are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. This information must reach Earth." As Vraxian boarding parties began cutting through the hull, Winters looked at his bridge crew one last time. "We did our job," he said quietly. "We bought Earth time." The Mariana Trench shipyard was Earth's best-kept secret. 5 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean, hidden from even the most advanced scanning technology, it was where humanity's greatest weapon was being prepared. Commander Diana Russell stood in the massive underwater hangar, staring up at the SDF Leviathan. The Dreadnought was enormous, over 2 miles long and half a mile wide. Unlike the sleek designs of regular human warships, the Leviathan was blocky and intimidating, with massive weapon ports along its hull. "Impressive, isn't she?" said a voice. Behind her, Russell turned to see Dr. Nathan Clark, the chief scientist of the Dreadnought program. He was in his 60s with wild gray hair and intense eyes that had seen too little sleep lately. "Will she be ready in time?" Russell asked. Clark nodded. "The Leviathan is at 98% operational capacity. The Singularity core is stable. Weapons, systems are online. We're just finishing the final calibrations of the Alcubierre drive." "And the crew?" "Arriving hourly. We've pulled in everyone with the necessary clearance and skills. Some are coming out of retirement. Others are being fast-tracked through training." Russell looked back at the massive ship. She had been selected to command the Leviathan 6 months ago, but even she had not been told all its secrets until recently. "Show me the weapon systems again," she said. Clark led her to a holographic display at the edge of the hangar. With a wave of his hand, the image of the Leviathan appeared with various sections highlighted. The primary weapon is the gravitational lance, Clark explained. It creates a focused gravitational distortion that can tear apart anything in its path. In theory, it could collapse a small star. In theory? Russell raised an eyebrow. We've never had a reason to test it at full power, Clark said with a small smile. The quantum shields work on similar principles, absorbing energy directed at the ship and redirecting it. And the Alcubierre drive bends space-time for faster-than-light travel, Russell finished. I've read the briefing. Yes, but what the briefing doesn't fully explain is that these systems all work together. The ship doesn't just use the technology we reverse-engineered from the Mars vessel, it improves upon it. A technician approached them with a tablet. Commander Russell, we've received a transmission from Fleet Command. The Vraxians have broken through at Proxima Centauri. Captain Winters and the Relentless managed to send valuable tactical data before they were lost. Russell took the tablet and read the report. Her face grew grim. They sacrificed themselves to buy us time. We can't waste it. She handed the tablet back. Tell Admiral Ellis we'll be ready to launch in 24 hours. Across the solar system, the other 6 dreadnoughts were also nearing completion. In the asteroid belt, the SDF Behemoth powered up its engines for the first time. Beneath the surface of Mars, the SDF Colossus ran weapon drills. In orbit around Jupiter, the SDF Titan's quantum shields flickered to life. Hidden in Saturn's rings, the SDF Goliath tested its sensor arrays. Deep in the Kuiper belt, the SDF Juggernaut completed its final system checks. And in a secret facility on Earth's moon, the SDF Kraken received its crew. Vice Admiral Maria Rodriguez coordinated it all from Central Command on Earth. She had been up for 72 hours straight, running on stimulants and sheer determination. Status report, she demanded as she entered the command center. Colonel Brad Wilson, her chief of staff, handed her a cup of coffee. The news isn't good. The Vraxians have taken Tau Ceti. That's the last major colony between them and Earth. Our conventional forces have been decimated. Casualties. Wilson's face tightened. Heavy. We've lost over 60% of our fleet. The remaining ships are falling back to Sol. Civilian deaths are in the millions. Rodriguez closed her eyes briefly. And the dreadnoughts? All 7 will be operational within 48 hours. But the Vraxians will reach the outer edge of our solar system before then. Then we need to slow them down even more. Rodriguez pulled up a holographic map of the solar system. Order all remaining ships to form a defensive line at Neptune's orbit. Tell them to employ the tactics Captain Winters discovered. Target the engine blind spots and use the electromagnetic frequencies that disrupt their shields. Wilson nodded. Yes, Admiral. But even with those advantages, I know, it's still a suicide mission. Rodriguez's voice was heavy. But every hour they can delay the Vraxians is another hour for our dreadnoughts to prepare. As Wilson left to relay the orders, Rodriguez studied the map. Red dots representing Vraxian ships were moving steadily toward Earth. She zoomed in on one section, where a Vraxian fleet had just destroyed a human colony on Alpha Centauri. The door to the command center opened. President Powell entered, looking exhausted but determined. How bad? She asked without preamble. The colony on Alpha Centauri is gone, Rodriguez reported. The Vraxians didn't just defeat them, they obliterated the entire settlement. 3 million civilians. They're broadcasting the footage on all channels. A terror tactic, Powell said grimly. Yes, and it's working. We're getting reports of panic on Earth. People trying to flee to the mountains or underground shelters. Powell moved to the window overlooking the command center floor. Hundreds of personnel worked frantically at their stations. Have you received Captain Winters' data? Rodriguez nodded. Yes. His sacrifice has given us some advantages, but with the forces we have left, she didn't need to finish the sentence. The dreadnoughts are our only real hope, Powell said. They'll be ready. But we need to prepare people for what's coming. The Vraxians will reach Earth in 5 days at their current speed. Even with the dreadnoughts, this will be the greatest threat humanity has ever faced. Powell straightened her shoulders. I'll address the planet tonight. No more secrets. People deserve to know what we're facing. On the Leviathan, Commander Russell addressed her newly assembled crew in the massive main hangar. 5,000 men and women stood at attention, a mixture of veteran officers and fresh recruits. Most of you only learned about this ship's existence in the past 24 hours, she began. Her voice echoed through the cavernous space. Some of you were pulled from retirement. Others were in the middle of training. All of you are here because Earth needs you. The Vraxians believe they have. 1. They've destroyed our colonies, defeated our conventional fleet, and are heading for Earth. They see us as primitive, easy prey. She paused, looking across the faces of her crew. They're wrong. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own self-destructive tendencies. We've clawed our way to the stars through sheer determination and ingenuity. And now we have something more. Knowledge from the Mars vessel that has given us technology the Vraxians cannot imagine. Russell gestured to the massive ship behind her. This is the SDF Leviathan. She's the most powerful warship ever built by human hands. Together with her 6 sister ships, she will defend our home. We launch in 12 hours. Between now and then, I want every system checked, every weapon calibrated, and every crew member at their station. She looked across the sea of faces once more. The next few days will determine whether humanity has a future. The Vraxians have shown us no mercy. They've slaughtered millions of innocent people. Today we are no longer just soldiers, sailors, and officers. Today we are the vengeance of humanity. A cheer rose from the assembled crew, echoing through the underwater hangar. As they dispersed to their stations, Dr. Clark approached Russell. Stirring speech, he said. But do you think we can really defeat them, even with the Dreadnoughts? Russell watched her crew moving purposefully toward the ship. We have to, she said simply. There's no alternative. Above them, through the clear dome of the underwater facility, they could see the dark waters of the Pacific. Somewhere, far above, the Vraxian fleet was approaching, and Earth's last best hope was about to rise from the depths to meet them. The last line of human warships gathered at the edge of the solar system. They were a ragged group, 45 vessels of various sizes, some damaged from previous battles, all crewed by tired but determined men and women. They had been joined by civilian ships that had been hastily armed, mining vessels with welded-on weapon ports, cargo haulers carrying missile batteries. Admiral Ellis watched from the bridge of his flagship, the SDF Defiant. The tactical display showed the approaching Vraxian fleet, over 200 ships moving in perfect formation. They'll be in weapons range in 10 minutes, reported his tactical officer. Ellis nodded. Send to all ships, hold position. Remember Captain Winter's data. Target their blind spots and use the frequencies he identified. A communications officer turned from her station. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Vraxians. Put it on screen, Ellis ordered. The image of Supreme Executor Zax 4 appeared. The alien looked even more imposing than in previous transmissions, his gray skin gleaming under the lights of his command ship. Humans, he said, his voice translated by the computer. Your resistance has been notable, if futile. We have destroyed your colonies. We have defeated your fleets. Now we come for your homeworld. Surrender now, and some of your species may be preserved to serve the hegemony. Ellis stood straight. This is Admiral Trent Ellis of Earth. We will not surrender. Not now. Not ever. Jacques Vier made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then you will be exterminated. Your species will be a forgotten footnote in the glorious history of the Vraxian hegemony. The transmission ended. Ellis turned to his crew. All ships, prepare to engage. The human fleet moved forward, breaking into small groups as they approached, the Vraxian Armada. They were using tactics developed from Captain Winter's Last Stand, hit-and-run attacks targeting the weak points in Vraxian defenses. For a while, it seemed to work. Several Vraxian ships fell back, damaged by the unexpected precision of the human attacks. But there were simply too many enemy vessels. One by one, human ships were picked off, exploding in bright flashes against the blackness of space. The Defiant shook as Vraxian weapons fire hit its shields. "Shields down to 30%, called out the engineering officer. "We can't take much more of this." Ellis watched as another human destroyer exploded. "Fall back to Mars orbit. All ships, defensive formation." As the remaining human ships retreated toward the red planet, the Vraxian fleet followed in pursuit. Victory seemed certain for the aliens. On Earth, President Powell stood in the central command bunker beneath Washington, D.C. The mood was grim as reports came in of the fleet's losses. Vice Admiral Rodriguez approached her. "Madam President, we've just received word. The Dreadnoughts are ready." Powell nodded. "Order them to launch immediately." "There's something else," Rodriguez added. "The Vraxians have broadcast an ultimatum to Earth. They're demanding our unconditional surrender within 1 hour, or they will begin the cleansing of our planet." Powell moved to the communications station. "Open a channel to all Earth frequencies and the Vraxian command ship." When the channel was open, she spoke clearly and firmly. "This is President Samantha Powell of the United Earth Government. To Supreme Executor Jacques Vore of the Vraxian hegemony, I have a simple response to your ultimatum. We choose neither surrender nor extinction." She nodded, and the transmission ended. "Now we see if our secret weapons are as good as we hope," she said quietly. In the darkest depths of the Pacific Ocean, massive underwater doors opened. The SDF Leviathan rose from its hidden berth, water cascading from its enormous hull as it broke the surface. Around the world, the other 6 dreadnoughts emerged from their secret locations, launching from underwater bases, asteroid hideaways, and concealed lunar facilities. On the Leviathan's bridge, Commander Russell sat in the command chair. The bridge was unlike any on a conventional warship, larger with holographic displays showing every aspect of the ship's systems. "All stations report ready," said Commander Amy Baker, her first officer. "Singularity core at full power," reported Chief Engineer William Porter. "Quantum shields activated. Weapon systems online." Russell nodded. "Coordinate with the other dreadnoughts. Set course for Mars orbit. Maximum speed." The Leviathan rose into the sky, its massive engines glowing with blue energy. Around the world, the other 6 dreadnoughts did the same. As they reached the upper atmosphere, their Alcubierre drives engaged. Space seemed to bend around them as they accelerated to speeds no human ship had ever achieved before. Near Mars, the battle was going badly for the human fleet. More than half of Ellis's ships had been destroyed. The Defiant itself was heavily damaged with breaches on multiple decks. "Admiral," called the sensor officer suddenly. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings. 7 massive distortions in space-time forming around the Vraxian fleet." Ellis straightened in his chair. "They're here," he said quietly. Space warped at 7 points surrounding the Vraxian armada. The dreadnoughts emerged from their faster-than-light jumps, dwarfing both the human defenders and the Vraxian ships. Each was a city-sized fortress of metal and energy, bristling with weapons unlike anything seen before. On the Vraxian command ship, Supreme Executor Jacques Vore stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "What are those?" he demanded of his science officer. "Unknown, Supreme Executor. They appear to be human vessels, but they're massive, and our sensors cannot penetrate their shields." Jacques Vore's yellow eyes narrowed. "Impossible. The humans do not possess such technology." On the Leviathan, Russell surveyed the battlefield. The dreadnoughts had positioned themselves strategically around the Vraxian fleet, cutting off any escape routes. "Open a channel to all human ships," she ordered. When the channel was open, she spoke. "This is Commander Diana Russell of the SDF Leviathan. All human vessels fall back and regroup. We'll take it from here." Then she opened a channel to the Vraxian command ship. "Supreme Executor Jacques Vore, this is Commander Russell of Earth's Dreadnought fleet. You believed us primitive. You thought us defenseless. You were wrong. These ships represent humanity's true technological capability, the power we hoped we would never need to use." There was a moment of silence before Jacques Vore's reply came through. "An impressive display, human. But even these ships cannot stand against the might of the Vraxian hegemony. We'll see about that, Russell said. She closed the channel and turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Kevin Weber, target their flagship. All weapons. Full power. Weber's fingers moved over his console. Target locked. Fire, Russell ordered. The Leviathan's primary weapon, the gravitational lance, powered up. A beam of distorted space shot forth, hitting the Vraxian flagship's shields. For a moment, the alien defenses held. Then they collapsed, and the beam cut through the ship's hull like it was paper. Direct hit, Weber reported. Their flagship is heavily damaged. Around them, the other dreadnoughts engaged the Vraxian fleet. The behemoth absorbed enemy fire with its quantum shields, redirecting the energy back at its attackers. The Colossus launched thousands of autonomous drone fighters that swarmed around Vraxian vessels. The Titan's gravitational lance tore a Vraxian heavy cruiser in half. For the first time since the invasion began, the Vraxians were on the defensive. They're trying to regroup, Baker reported, studying the tactical display. Russell nodded. Don't let them. Coordinate with the other dreadnoughts, keep them separated and confused. The battle raged across the orbit of Mars. The dreadnoughts moved with surprising agility for vessels of their size, dancing around the Vraxian ships like predators toying with prey. On his damaged flagship, Zaxavur watched in growing rage as his fleet was decimated. Order all ships to protect this vessel, he commanded, and prepare the reality warper. His second-in-command looked alarmed. Supreme Executor, the reality warper has never been tested in combat. The energy requirements alone could— Do it, Zaxavur roared. These humans will not defeat us. I will tear their world apart rather than admit defeat to primitives. As the remaining Vraxian ships formed a protective wall around their flagship, sensors on the Leviathan detected a strange energy buildup. Commander, called Lieutenant John Foster from the science station. I'm detecting unusual readings from the Vraxian flagship. Energy levels are off the charts. Russell's eyes narrowed. What are they doing? Unknown, but whatever it is, it's bending the fabric of reality around their ship. Russell made a quick decision. All dreadnoughts, focus fire on the Vraxian flagship. Now, whatever they're charging up, we can't let them use it. Space warped and twisted around the Vraxian flagship. A strange purple glow surrounded the vessel as its reality warper powered up. The remaining Vraxian ships formed a protective wall, sacrificing themselves to buy time for their leader's desperate plan. What is that thing? Commander Russell asked, staring at the main view screen of the Leviathan. Dr. Clark had joined them on the bridge, his face pale as he studied the sensor readings. It appears to be a device that manipulates the fundamental forces of reality. If my readings are correct, they're trying to create a localized black hole. Target? Russell asked. Us, Clark said simply. If they succeed, they'll create a gravitational singularity that could destroy the dreadnoughts and possibly tear apart Mars as well. Russell made an instant decision. All dreadnoughts, emergency protocol Omega. Divert all power to the Alcubierre drives. We need to synchronize our space-time fields. Commander Baker looked at her in surprise. That's never been tested outside simulation. We don't have a choice, Russell replied. If that weapon fully activates, nothing in this solar system will survive. Orders flashed to the other 6 dreadnoughts. Within seconds, the massive ships began to coordinate their Alcubierre drives, the engines that allowed them to bend space-time for faster-than-light travel. What exactly are we doing? Baker asked quietly. Fighting fire with fire, Russell explained. They're trying to distort reality, so are we. But instead of creating a singularity, we're going to create a counter-resonance. On the tactical display, the 7 dreadnoughts moved into a precise formation around the Vraxian fleet. Energy began to flow between them, visible as bright blue streams connecting the human vessels. Alcubierre field synchronized, reported the science officer. Ready on your command. Russell took a deep breath. Execute. The space between the dreadnoughts suddenly warped, creating a bubble of distorted reality that expanded to engulf the Vraxian fleet. Inside the bubble, the laws of physics changed subtly, altered by the combined power of 7 artificial singularity cores working in perfect harmony. On the Vraxian flagship, alarms blared as systems began to fail. What's happening? Supreme Executor Zaxavur demanded. The humans, his science officer gasped. They're using their engines to create a selective phase shift in reality. Our ships are becoming out of sync with normal space-time. Impossible, Jacques Vour roared. No primitive species could master such technology. Outside, the energy storm created by the Dreadnoughts' synchronized Alcubierre drives grew more intense. Vraxian ships began to break apart, their atomic bonds weakening as they shifted partially out of phase with normal reality. But the human ships remained untouched, protected by their quantum shields that were tuned to the specific frequency of the distortion. Jacques Vour watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated around him. His reality warper, still charging, began to overload as it tried to compensate for the changing conditions. Supreme Executor, his second-in-command, said urgently, "We must abort. The reality warper is becoming unstable." But Jacques Vour had come too far to surrender. "Increase power, target the human command ship." Before his officers could comply, a communication channel opened. Commander Russell's face appeared on his screen. "Supreme Executor Jacques Vour," she said, calmly. "Your fleet is defeated. Your weapon is failing. Surrender now, and we will spare those of your people who remain." Jacques Vour's yellow eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible. How could primitives like you possess such technology?" Russell's expression was stern but not without compassion. "You made a fundamental error in your calculations, Supreme Executor. Humanity isn't primitive. We were just quiet, and you've woken us up." Jacques Vour stared at the human commander. For the first time in his long military career, he felt fear. "What are you?" he asked. "We are humanity," Russell replied simply, "and we will not be conquered." She closed the channel and turned to her tactical officer. "Lieutenant Weber, target. The Vraxian flagship. Main cannon." "Target locked," Weber confirmed. "Fire." The Leviathan's gravitational lance fired, a beam of concentrated space-time distortion that cut through the chaos of the energy storm. It hit the Vraxian flagship with pinpoint accuracy, penetrating directly to the heart of the vessel where the unstable reality warper was housed. The explosion was unlike anything ever seen in Earth's solar system. The Vraxian flagship didn't simply explode. It seemed to fold in on itself before disappearing in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. When the light faded, the energy storm created by the Dreadnoughts dissipated. Of the once mighty Vraxian fleet, only scattered debris remained. All Vraxian ships destroyed or disabled, Weber reported, his voice quiet with awe at what they had just accomplished. Russell sat back in her command chair, suddenly feeling the weight of the past days. "Send to all Dreadnoughts and remaining human vessels. Victory is ours. Begin recovery operations for any survivors." 1 month later, Commander Russell stood in the observation deck of the Leviathan, looking down at Earth. The blue planet seemed peaceful from orbit, but she knew the reality on the surface. Millions dead in the colonies, cities damaged by Vraxian attacks, the long process of rebuilding just beginning. The door slid open behind her. Commander Baker entered. "The Liberation Fleet is ready, Admiral," she said, using Russell's new rank. After the battle, President Powell had promoted her to Admiral and given her command of all 7 Dreadnoughts. Their mission now was to liberate human colonies that had been occupied by the Vraxians and to establish humanity's new place in the galaxy. "The diplomatic corps has been receiving messages from across the galaxy," Baker continued. "Apparently, we weren't the only civilization the Vraxians attacked. There are dozens of species who suffered under their rule." "What do they want from us?" Russell asked. "Not what you might expect. They don't want our technology or military support. They're asking for something else." Baker paused. "Hope." Russell looked at her in surprise. "The Vraxians convinced everyone they were invincible," Baker explained. "Many species surrendered without fighting. But we fought back and won. We proved the Vraxians could be defeated." Russell turned back to look at Earth. "What did President Powell say?" "She said our response would be unanimous." Baker smiled. "We stand with you." Russell nodded. It was the right answer. "Where to now, Admiral?" Baker asked. Russell looked out, at the stars. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. They had discovered they were not alone in the galaxy. They had proven themselves as a force to be reckoned with. But more importantly, they had found a purpose greater than mere survival. Other civilizations needed their help. Other worlds waited to be liberated. And beyond that, a vast galaxy waited to be explored. A small smile formed on Russell's lips. "Everywhere," she said. The Leviathan moved away from Earth, its massive engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. Behind it, the other 6 dreadnoughts followed in formation. Once built in secret as weapons of last resort, they were now the vanguard of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. On the main bridge, Admiral Russell took her place, in the command chair. "Set course for the Centauri system," she ordered. "Maximum speed." As the dreadnoughts accelerated, their Alcubierre drives bending space-time around them, Earth grew smaller behind them. But it wasn't being left undefended. Already, new ships were being built, incorporating the technology that had saved humanity. The knowledge from the Mars vessel, once Earth's most closely guarded secret, was now being used openly to advance human civilization. The Vraxian threat was ended, and humanity, once on the brink of extinction, looked to the stars not with fear but with confidence. "Alcubierre drive engaged," reported the helm officer. "Estimated arrival at Alpha Centauri in 6 hours." Russell nodded. "Send word ahead. Tell them Earth is coming, and we bring freedom." The dreadnoughts vanished into the distorted space of their faster-than-light bubbles carrying the promise of Earth to the stars.